just love music. They run the show at night. Dropping beats and lineup tips, turning waiver wire into light. Fast lane pickups, midnight moves, setting rosters right. They'll tell you who to start and who to bite the fight. Listen to sports rivals, rockin' renegades, crank it loud, crank it proud. Wanna win your fantasy league? Join the renegade crowd. John and Ralph know the way. They'll guide you through the fray. Starts and sits, waiver wire pickups. Tune in and play. From sleeper calls to breakout stars, they break it down and play by play. Stats and stories, grit and guts, they sharpen up your day. Trade advice and matchup gold, they hustle for your pay. Putting fantasy in overdrive, carving out the way. Listen to sports rivals, rockin' renegades, crank it loud, crank it proud. Wanna win your fantasy league? Join the renegade crowd. John and Ralph know the way. They'll guide you through the fray. Starts and sits, waiver wire pickups. Tune in and play. Late night hustle, early morning reads, they're scanning every game. Fast lane pickups, timely hits, they've got the instincts and the flame. No fluff, no noise, just real talk, no two hosts the same. John and Ralph, your fantasy compass, staking out the claim. Listen to sports rivals, rockin' renegades, crank it loud, crank it proud. Wanna win your fantasy league? Join the renegade crowd. John and Ralph know the way. They'll guide you through the fray. Starts and sits, waiver wire pickups. Tune in and play. Listen to sports rivals, rockin' renegades, rock your roster every day. Fast lane pickups, John and Ralph know the way. Turn it up.
Here we are. I can't believe I'm saying it. Week 10 of the football season. Welcome, fantasy football fans. I'm Ralph, your host. Welcome to the Rockin' Renegades in Sports Rivals Fantasy Football Talk. Hey, and with it being week 10, we all know what's coming. It's getting cold. Actually, it's supposed to snow Monday. Make sure you get your furnaces checked. Reach out to Impact Heating, Tony Danello, 412-297-1852. Have them come out, check your ductwork, make sure everything's running. You don't want to be left in the cold. Contact Impact Heating. And I want to welcome my, as always, my co-host. Welcome to the Guru of the Gridiron, John. How you doing, man?
How are you tonight, brother? Happy to be here, man. I'm ready to go. Week 10, man.
I can't believe it, man. Another week, man. Week 10 already.
I can't believe this season is going really fast, and it's almost like you can't even enjoy it anymore. We need 20 weeks or 30 weeks. And I'll smile a little bit more every day.
I don't know how much I can take that. It's football every night, man. You know, we're at Monday night football, Thursday night football. Pretty soon we're gonna have Saturday night football. We have Sunday morning football. We're rolling every day of the week, man. It's getting hard to keep up with the rosters, especially with all the injuries.
That's right. We're committed, though. I mean, we're committed to everybody. Get your fantasy players out there. We love talking football. Send your questions. Believe me, I'll
questions,
talk football 24/7.
Trades. We'll try to do you right on a trade if you have a trade question. But speaking of trades, what a week, huh?
It was. There was a few more than I expected, but there was a few surprises too.
Yeah, I agree. But John, before we get into the trades and talk, I can't believe sportsbible.com is putting their own player of the week in. I hate to say it, the fast lane player of the week, because that's left for you, but we'll start with the fast lane player of the week before we get into Sports Bible's player of the week. Who you got for us, John?
That's my pick, and JT put it out there, Fast Lane Coffee, and I'm going with. Go ahead and roll that video, JT.
Here we go, a 68-yarder from the left hash. Logan puts it down. Cam Little kicks it up. The 68-yard field goal is good! He drilled it from 68 yards.
You've got to be kidding me.
How good is
Who would have thought a player of the week is going to be a kicker, right? Cam Little, 68-yard record for the player of the week.
When a guy breaks a record like that, you have to have him as the fast lane player of the week. I mean, that could have been good from 60 yards. Kickers don't get enough attention. These guys win games week in and week out. They save our fantasy seasons. What can you do, man?
Yes,
Little, good from 70.
That would have been good from 70, John, the way he kicked that. It's cool to see. Hate to say it, but a kicker's the player of the week. But as we're talking trades. It looked like some defenses, for your IDP leagues got bumped up. And yes, the Sauce is now in Indy. What a trade. You're looking at the Jets now having 5 first-round picks in the next 2 years. Sauce Gardner going to Indy.
That one really shocked me. I was amazed at that. But Indy giving up 2 first-rounders. And think about it. I mean, that team's in it to win it this year. They had obviously against our Steelers, but
the thing, John, with the Jets is, I expected maybe Breece Hall to go or something like that, and that trade never went. But just a little fact I seen this today. The Jets have traded since 2017 almost all of their first rounders. Jamal Adams, 2017, gone. 2018. Sam Darnold, gone. 2019, now Quillen Williams is now in Dallas, gone. Then you got 2021 Zach Wilson. Who knows where Zach Wilson's going to end up or where he's at even now. And then 2022, Sauce Gardner, now in Indy. But as we said, Quillen Williams and Logan Wilson, actually, the linebacker, going to Dallas. They're bolstering their defense. I don't know why, because after the last couple of weeks of Dallas losses, I don't know what's going on in Dallas.
I think they're trying to save face. What one thing that amazes me is Logan Wilson. I mean, that guy's been a tackling machine for the Bengals for last 3 years. It's rock solid, and to keep him off the field. It's just really surprising to me. And Dallas, they can't stop the run anyway, so it's nice to have a guy in there as your stopgap. I think he's going to be rock solid there. And Tim said he thinks Boswell could kick that 70-yard field goal. I'll tell you what, Boswell is awesome. I mean, I got him on 2 fantasy league teams, and I
because you're a homer, John. Let's see that shirt. Let's see that shirt, you big homer. Stand up. Troy Polamalu.
Yeah, I got to get the Pro Bowl jersey from 2009. And you know what? That team deserved. Troy had to respect him. Last week. I think he's looking on, he's smiling. That's a Steeler defense that we should be seeing right now.
No doubt.
Aggressive. No doubt. I mean, just they played unbelievable. They were lights out, and that's the way it should be.
But also on defense, John, looks like Philly, getting Jalen Phillips, Jair Alexander, they're bolstering their D, Timothy says he started to think nothing against the Jets, too. I don't know. Tim, I hate to tell you, man, I still think the Jets are a better run franchise than the Pirates. And I hate to say that for Sports Bible and JT being a Pirate homer, but they still suck. That's why there'll always be the Pirates, and you might not see a winning season here till 2070. maybe if they're lucky.
Yeah.
But to get away from defense, John, what about the trade to Jacksonville? Jacoby Myers, going from Vegas. I know that Hunter is hurt a little bit, and we got to talk about a guy that I'm going to talk about my sits. BTJ. What does Myers do for the Jaguars?
I think he's an excellent receiver. I think he's very underrated. I think it definitely bolsters, the receiving core. That's easy to say. But the one thing that I want to see out of this is what kind of chemistry is he going to have with Trevor Lawrence? I don't think that's going to be something that happens right out of the gate. In fact, we'll be talking about him in my list a little bit later, Jacoby.
I'd like to see.
I was surprised.
I'd like to see Lawrence get chemistry with somebody. Period.
That's right.
It looked last year like Thomas Jr. was going to be the man, and how the mighty have fallen. He was putting up 18, 19 points a week. Now he's down to 10. And Etienne looked strong at the beginning. He's fallen off, and I don't know what's going on in Jacksonville.
He has chemistry with Vidal Sassoon. That's it. And that hair. I just think, when are we going to see what is the real Jacksonville team? We see every week it's something different. Man, they're lights out this week, and they were flat last week against the Raiders. They should have went in and blown them out and at least looked impressive. But it's year in and year out. We don't know what Jacksonville team we're going to see.
Yeah, and across the ticker, the Jets obtain 3 number ones and the number 2, and that's right. They did get Mitchell. And that's something. Wilson, for a team like that doesn't have much talent, Mitchell could be, a strong number 2 there. He comes from the Colts, where the Colts had so many pass catchers. He kind of got lost in the mix. Maybe with the Jets. Well, if the Jets can find a quarterback, and we'll talk about that in my sits, coming up. One more guy I want to talk about, John, before we go to our starts and sits and move on, is Rashid Shaheed going to Seattle. And it kind of bummed me out a little bit because, now, Torrey Holton, once Kupp comes back, is probably going to end up sitting. Shaheed says he thinks he finds a home. He wants to stay in Seattle. I think he slides in as the number 2. And actually, he's probably on even some of the waiver wires out there. It might be a good pickup for most people.
Yeah, the guy's a great deep threat. He's even going to be a better threat now with Sam Darnold throwing to him. You got, Jackson Smith and Jigba on the other side. I think when Cooper Kupp comes back, I don't know how much life the guy has left in him. He was one of the best receivers for the last 5 years, consistent. I think he's starting to show his age. He's wearing down. And I think that they need to get Torrey Horton out on the field a little bit more. When the guy's out there, he produces. Touchdown again.
Touchdowns, right? Just the last week, couple touchdowns. What do you have? 4 receptions and 2 TDs. I agree. In the dynasty league, maybe Horton's a guy you bring on and hold on to. But as of right now, I think Shaheed slides in. There is the number 2. Hey, John, do you before we move on, winter's coming, man. Like I said, we're in week 10. Things are getting cold. Make sure you get your furnace checked. If you need it, call Tony Danello. Impact Heating, 412-297-1852. Come out to clean your ducts. They'll check your furnace. You give it the good old once over. You don't want to be stuck in the cold, this winter. And we know how cold it can get here in good old Pittsburgh as we're watching our Stillers on Sunday. Now, start and sits, John. You want to go first?
Oh, we got some good lists here. Let's go with starts.
Okay, perfect.
This guy is the ageless wonder. Produces every week, and that's Matt Stafford. You look
first,
at.
I thought you were going to say Flacco there for a moment.
No, that's ancient.
Ancient wonder.
This
wonder why he's still playing.
This is the ageless wonder. Yeah, but anyway, Matt Stafford, though, you look at, this guy is one of the toughest quarterbacks in NFL history. I got to say that. All the beatings he took in Detroit, he's always been underrated. Now he goes to LA. He wins the Super Bowl, and he's just lights out every week.
And the good thing, yeah, I agree. The good thing for Stafford too, John, this week is Nakua. They're saying his ribs are feeling pretty good. He's supposed to play. So with Nakua back and Adams, I mean, I love that offense.
It is a great offense. And I have Nakua in my other league, and my work league, and it's a big difference between when he was out and when he's in. I mean, he's 20, 25 points every week guaranteed. And that offense, and the chemistry he has with Stafford, and the guys that you think Puka Nakua, and you look at all the great receivers in this league, and the guy's really starting to make it into the top 3, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He's aggressive. Every pass that goes his way, whether he's double covered, draped, single coverage, it doesn't matter. He's catching the ball. He's tough. The guy's a great player.
Oh, it's coming across the ticker. Ovechkin just scored his 900th goal. How about that? Good old Ovi.
That's
it's amazing. Yeah, it is amazing. What about Yager? I mean, Yager's still playing at 54? God bless him.
That's unbelievable.
I hope I'm still alive at 54, let alone playing hockey anymore. But so
I'm surprised he knows where he's at.
No doubt. Hey, John, I'm going to go out a little bit on a limb here. I don't want to say much on a limb, but I'll discuss why. My start of the week is Goff. So Jared Goff going against Washington is my start. I know he's on the road. People always say, you can't play Goff on the road, but his last 2 outings, he's been really good. He scored 20 points in his last 2. Washington is like the 3rd worst allowed points, for quarterbacks.
Right.
He's usually the guy you want to avoid on the road, but I'm putting a call out for Jared Goff this week as my starting quarterback of the week.
I like it. I mean, I think the guy's very underrated. Just look at the weapons that are around him. I'd start him, out in the desert with no water. He's amazing. I mean, the running game, you got 2 great running backs. You got an awesome receiving core. He's really starting to, hook up with everybody now. I mean, it's a great
sun god, Almond Ross there. You got Williams there. You got Laporta. You got Gibbs. I mean, it's just too tough. And now, Washington with Jaden Daniels being down, I think Goff's a good start.
And how about that Daniels injury? I can't believe it. We talk about this, we chat about it in our text. The amount of injuries that we see, it just started with the star players now. It's been so massive here.
I can barely keep a lineup. I just made a trade this week, and like we talked about, we're defensive IDP, and I just made a trade for Will Anderson. Since I lost Bosa for the year, I wanted to pair Anderson with Myles Garrett. Now there's talk about Will Anderson not playing this week. I'm like, Jesus, what am I going to do, man? I just can't win. Just cannot win. But let's move on to the running backs, John. Who do you got? Who you starting this week?
I got Quinshawn Judkins.
Good start.
I like the way the kid's playing. They get the Jets this week, and it's now we don't have Sauce, we don't have Williams in there. I mean, what are they going to do to hold up against this Browns rushing attack? Now, dared I say that? Did I really say that? I did say it. Browns rushing attack. Quinshawn Judkins. You talked about this guy, 3 or 4 weeks ago when we were on the show.
I talked about drafting him when we were at our draft. I was kind of hoping he was going to fall to the 2nd round. Obviously,
right.
The guys that we have in our league, they're no amateurs, and Quinshawn Judkins didn't make it out of the 1st round.
Great player.
The guy is a great player. It's a good pick. Once again, Rockin' Renegades brought to you by Impact Heating. For all your heating and cooling needs, reach out to Tony Danello. Tell him Ralph and John sent you. I don't know if he'll give you a discount, but you can ask him. Tom, the guys from Sports Bible. My start this week, and I know this is going to grind your gears a little bit, John. But I'm going with Rico Dottle.
Player.
The guy, he had 27 touches, and he's scored like 20 some points the last couple weeks in a row. I mean, he's taken over the job, from Chuba.
Right.
Playing the Saints this week, New Orleans, they allowed, 14 or more points to 8 running backs this year already. You're looking for, Dottle to probably put up like 18 to 20 points again.
Sure.
I think he's the start for me this week. And I hate to say it, you talk about starting Carolina, running backs, and we know how terrible, the passing attack is with Young. But, Dottle is he's been on a hot streak. He might as well ride the hot hand.
Yeah, he's been a monster too, and like I said, with Chuba sitting there. I got him from you last year, I think, early last year.
You sure did. Yeah.
Great last year. He goes out 2 weeks, and then he just loses his job, and he hasn't looked the same either. I mean, they gave him the opportunity, but you like you said, you have to ride the hot hand, and I love, and I said this last week, what Dave Canales is doing with that team. That defense is playing lights out. Everybody that's listening, if you get a chance to watch Carolina, it's a very improved team, and he's coaching them, they're let's say they're precise right now. They're starting to become a fine oiled machine. He gets a couple players on offense. I'd like to see Young wake up a little bit, but I like that team. I like that team and what they're doing, in the next 3 or 4 years. If he keeps this up, look out.
Let's move over to our start receivers this week. Who do you got, John? Who are you starting this week?
This is a guy that's near and dear to my heart, my first-round pick in our league last year, Ladd McConkey. We talk about this. We talk about this regularly, how the Steelers cannot stop a slot receiver beside a tight end.
Drives me nuts.
I know, me too. I can almost, what I want to do, get out and strangle somebody.
No, we don't condone violence on this show, John.
That's right. We think about it, though.
No doubt. The only thing that, I have, I lost Burrow the year, I have Justin Gilbert. There's just so many mouths to feed is my only thing there. McConkey, right. I mean, he's you got him, you got Johnson, you got Keenan Allen, plus that young tight end is starting to step up. What an offense! Plus in another week, maybe 2. You're talking about Marion Hampton, coming back in. It's a good start for a great team, and like you said, the Steelers can't cover a slot guy to save their life. So McConkey is a good start this week. John, I'm going with one guy that you have on your team, and my start this week might surprise you. I'm going to Philly. I'm going to A.J. Brown. Here's the deal. Philly, the last couple of weeks, besides the tush push, and I hate to say this, I mean, Barkley's my man. I have it on the team. They're not running the ball well.
They're not.
Playing Green Bay's going to open it up a little bit on them. I'm hesitant to start them. I was hesitant to put them in, but, they said the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And, Brown coming back, I think fresh off the bye, fresh legs, I think we're going to see something from him. I try to take a little step out there this week with my starts, John. And I know, A.J. Brown, he's burnt you, and he's been sitting on your bench, and you don't know if you're going to start him or not. But you know what? This week, I'm starting him.
I like it. I mean, what's crazy is he's one of my favorite players in this league. I mean, when he was in Tennessee, I loved him there. I mean, I saw when he came to Philly. I think, there's going to have to be a time where A.J. Brown breaks out. We haven't seen it this year. The tush push and Jalen Hurts and he loves Devontae Smith. I don't know what that relationship is, but I love A.J. Brown. I mean, I think that guy in any offense, he's tough. He's kind of like DK Metcalf. I mean, I put him in that same league.
Yeah,
They're aggressive, big, huge receivers, difficult to stop. But you got to feed these guys the ball.
no
And
doubt.
I think Jalen Hurts, for some reason, just to me, man, guys has I'm not gonna. I don't know if it's ego or what,
Well,
but
let's talk about Jalen Hurts here real quick. And Jalen Hurts is a wonderful fantasy quarterback. Just for scoring the
great.
touchdowns and running the ball. Is he a good quarterback? In my opinion, not really. But your
No,
fantasy guy, he's always in the top 5, right? Just for the fact
right,
that he runs the ball and he's not very accurate.
right,
But fantasy isn't always about the best players. Like even on defense, you always start the guy that's the quarterback of opposite of Sauce Gardner or whoever else because they're the guys getting the tackles. That's one thing we got to talk is Hurts the fantasy stud. Fantasy, yes. Would you want him on your team? Well, I wouldn't mind Hurts. Here in Pittsburgh, I'd take him. After Rodgers leaves, but
right.
a real quarterback in the top 5 in my case. No. Let's move on
I
to our
agree.
6, John. And before we get to start, and I'm going to talk about not only sit but an injury in a bench. I'm talking about was a 2018 number 1 pick overall, Kyler Murray. Bad foot, getting benched. You look what's happened. Jacoby Brissett comes in, journeyman quarterback.
Right.
It feeds. He feeds Harrison, and that's what they should be doing. And
I
then guy
agree.
like Trey McBride, still even with Brissett in, was still amazing.
Right.
Brissett might be a guy out there if you're looking for a quarterback. If you're in a 2 quarterback league and in a dynasty, a flex, super flex. Maybe roll the dice on picking up Brissett this week. But Murray is one of the guys I'm going to talk about benching. Obviously, you have to because he's hurt. But the guy that I really want to look at is we talked about the Jets, and that's Justin Fields. Going against Cleveland, John.
Right.
We've been talking about the Jets a lot this week. You're looking at Christ. The only good news is Garrett Wilson's back. I just the Browns they've only allowed 3 quarterbacks to put up over 16 points out of these 9 weeks, and it's a tough
Right.
defense to go against. And I'm gonna have to sit Justin Fields if I had him. I know a lot of people reached out; they were high on Justin Fields. At the beginning of the year. He's just looking like he's not going to cut it. But don't worry, Jets fans. With all those number 1 picks, you'll definitely get your quarterback of the future coming here next year.
That's right. I mean, I got a good friend that's a Jets fan, and I feel for him every year. For all the complaining we do about Mike Tomlin, at least we see some wins here.
That's true.
But
Hey,
that's tough.
it is tough. Hey, Terry wanted to know if the trade deadline. Yes, Terry, the trade deadline has come and gone. It was 4:00 on Tuesday. So you won't see that, to talk about the Steelers trading for, another receiver or pulling something like that in. It looks like the Steelers are happy with what they got. Are we happy with it? Probably not. But it looks like they are. There might be some underhanded stuff that sneaks through yet, but, for the most part, I think you've seen the most of your moves done. So.
Yeah, I agree. We would have liked to have seen something. I mean, at least somebody on the outside, a little bit more consistent deep threat, which they don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, Terry said Bucks didn't do shit.
Bucks didn't do shit. Yes, I see that too. And speaking of the Bucks, John, you just traded for Baker Mayfield.
I absolutely did. We've been talking about him. I had a great opportunity to get him. With Stroud being my guy, that's I think that's a little bit too much weight to bear for him to win a fantasy championship. To be able to get Baker, a quarterback and a player that I love the guy. I think he's a great player. I like a quarterback, that plays the way he does. I mean, he gets destroyed in there a lot of times. Always comes back, never gives up.
He's tough.
You want to see guy. Great leader, too, for sure.
Hey, John, we're getting close to time. Who do you have? I hate to keep running. Who do you got for your sit for quarterback this week?
Jordan Love.
You're going to sit the
Jordan Love,
Packers against Philly, huh?
you're looking, I think the guy, I was reading the stats. I don't have them right in front of me, but only put up 9 fantasy points last week. He hasn't
I know. I have him in the league.
with that receiving core, against Philly too. I mean, Philly coming off a bye week in Philly, they're going to be fired up. The fan base is going to be going crazy. I think this is going to be a tough week for Green Bay. I really do. I think they're going to be playing from behind the entire game. Hopefully A.J. Brown's dancing in the end zone a little bit.
Oh, you're hoping, right, if you start them. Hey, as we move on for running backs, my sit this week is Bill Krosky-Merritt, Washington. The guy, the last 2 weeks, has failed to score double digits. You're looking at the Lions defense. Only one running back has scored more than 14 points against the Lions. A solid defense.
Right.
Without Jaden Daniels there, they're going to stack it on him. He's my sit of the week.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice. That's a really good choice. The way that Washington team's playing now too, I mean, they're going to make Mariota beat him. It's going to be a rough game. That's one of the teams that I'm really surprised at this year. We saw all that, just made that nice playoff run last year. Daniel's getting hurt, all the injuries. It's just they're totally out of sync this year.
The guy might see a lot of action this week is Debo, in that lineup. McLaren, hurt. Yeah, it's terrible. But anyway, who are you sitting this week at running back, John?
Oh, running back? Travis Etienne. Against Houston, that Houston defense has been playing lights out.
It is. They're tough, man.
That's been the consistent part of that team. I mean, the offense is, really lets them down, which is, it was the opposite a few years ago we were talking about. The offense is lighting it up, defense is letting them down. That defense is playing lights out, tough, aggressive, pressure in the quarterback. Secondary's playing lights out. Yeah, Etienne's going to struggle this week.
And John, we go to my receiver this week. I'm staying with Jacksonville. I'm sitting BTJ. Against the Texans, on the road, they just added Jacoby Myers. I know Hunter's hurt. But the Texans are only, they're averaging only, 10 points a game to your receivers. They're fourth in the league against the pass. They're tough, leading the league, up there in interceptions. Thomas Jr. is my receiver sit of the week.
This is great because my receiver sit of the week, we're staying in Jacksonville with Jacoby Myers. Raiders. I like the guy too, but just coming in, learning this new offense, I think he's going to pick it up quickly. I just don't see the chemistry there, yet with Lawrence. And the way Jacksonville looked last week, now you're going up against one of the best defenses in the league in a divisional game in Houston. I just, even with Stroud out, I think that defense wins the game. I think you're going to see, definitely going to see a defensive touchdown in this one.
You heard it here first from the guru, the gridiron. He's calling the Houston defensive touchdown. If you have the Houston D, make sure you get him in. Hey, John,
right.
Week 10, man, good luck. We're getting ready for the ramp up for our the fantasy playoffs. Again, if you guys have any trade questions, if you have anything starts, sits, if you want to know about any pickups, reach out to us during the week. Send us a text, send us an email, or just tune into the show and ask them right online. Hey, John, again, thank you very much. Hey, make sure you get your heating checked, everybody. Impact Heating, reach out to Tony Danello. 412-297-1852. They'll take care of you. Don't get caught out in the cold. Let's see what Week 10 brings us, John. Everybody, peace.